2 hilariously bad Lost episode stories that will make you laugh instead of screaming in terror. These are bad because they're either not scary at all or incredibly cliche. Now, I don't mean any offense to the people who actually made these creepypastas because this is all in good fun. Also, I will be reading the stories in their entirety, so it's still the author's work without my modifications or summary. With that being said, let's get on to 2 hilariously bad Lost cartoon episodes. First up is a Loud House one called Lost VHS Tape. I always saw the Loud House on Nickelodeon. This became one of my favorite shows and I made a schedule to record every episode. So I thought to myself, could there be any Loud House DVDs or VHS tapes? So I headed to the movie store and I went to the aisle where the TV shows have episodes on them. When I went to this aisle, there were numerous DVDs and VHS tapes. I bought 2 SpongeBob DVDs that had every season 1 and 2 episodes since I also liked SpongeBob. But I found this VHS tape of the Loud House called The Loud House Volume 666. The back only had 6 episodes. The last episode was called Unknown. I watched the tape and it had the normal intro until the title card had a white background with Lincoln's head, but all of a sudden he was all colored in a jet black with scorching fire in his eyes. Side note, there's a lot of run-on sentences. This is really bothering me. Then it showed Lincoln going in his room and saying, "Well, today is the first day of summer and it's time to read my comics in my undies." After that title card showed examples like 1 day later, 2 months later, or 3 weeks later. The title card said 10 minutes later, then their parents Rita and Senior Lynn went out to their ballroom dancing and telling them to lock the door. But like in normal episode, they will not lock the door, but Lenny locks the door, which is strange considering they don't lock the door. Then the next scene was Lenny making an announcement, then she called her siblings. She told everyone, "I'm stupid and I do realize it now, making me a loser." That was the point when out of nowhere she grabbed a gun. Everybody told her, "Don't do it," until Lenny's eyes turned bloodshot red, until a voice in her head said, "Do it." Then she shot herself in mouth. Then static occurred for the last 25 seconds. Then the show came back on. It showed a screenshot of Lenny with blood coming out of her mouth and nose with the back of her head blown up while the Lincoln and the sisters screamed for their life, and I was at the verge of vomiting. The next couple of days, Lisa was making an experimental bomb when she combined every liquid she had in her small tube jars. She called everyone with a hard object such as a chair, but when this explosion happened, the window was somehow opened, and when the explosion happened, it sent her flying. But when she was about to hit the road pavement, a truck hits Lisa's back, causing her to break her spine as a crack noise happened. When she hit the road pavement, she started crying with blood coming from her eyes and mouth. Lincoln and his sisters came to see what happened and started crying. Lori called the police and ER, and they came, and sadly she was pronounced dead at the scene. Okay, no, I cannot do this. I really thought at the start of this video I could read this entire creepypasta, but I just cannot do it. This Loud House one in particular has so many run-on sentences, so many problems with grammar, and nothing in it makes sense. This is not at all how the Loud House characters would act. Okay, I'm just gonna read the last paragraph and then move on to the next story. After that, Luann was making a video for a website and grabbed a gun and said, "What do you call a slingshot with a gun? A gunslinger, ha ha ha," until she accidentally shot herself. Lincoln and Lynn stormed in and screamed. They saw the video and they were horrified and was buried at the cemetery along with Lenny, Lisa, Luna, Lori, Lana, and Lola. Lynn decided to sleep with Lincoln until they went to one of Lynn's roller derbies, and when she made a flip, she landed on her neck, breaking her neck. Lincoln and his mom crying. Lincoln's mom told...
Let's watch some real stuff.
Well, you guys really liked my videos about Lost cartoon episodes. If you're new here, basically this is a small series of videos where I go over some really messed up stories about Lost episodes. They're all creepypastas and they're all fictional, but still this is some extremely scary stuff. I have to warn you that this video is pretty scary and it has some dark themes, so if you're scared easily, then don't continue watching. If you're brave, then stick around and see how far you can make it into the video without getting as spooked as these spooky, scary skeletons. So let's start off with a story called Gregory's Room. Now this isn't too scary, but it's better to do the less creepy story first. So this creepypasta starts off with the narrator telling us he has a cheerful life. One great part about his childhood is watching TV cartoons in the 90s. He had a dream of becoming a cartoon tester, and soon his parents found out. One afternoon they took him to the Nickelodeon headquarters to possibly see what job he can have in the future. The narrator and a few other kids sat in a big room, waiting for someone to enter the room and tell them what to do. Eventually a staff member came out of nowhere and he held a CD for a new cartoon. He told the kids that Nickelodeon was going to make a new series on Nick Jr. and the kids cheered. So this staff member puts a CD in the DVD player and then leaves the room after saying he'll come back later. The TV went to a static screen and then showed a fireplace burning. We see the whole room and there's no music at all. We then see a chair facing the window towards the night sky. There's a bald head on the chair and it slowly turns as it stares at the camera with a creepy and realistic face. He begins to talk to the viewer and says that this is Gregory and this is his room. He tells the viewer that we will have fun, just the two of us. Gregory kept saying that it was just the two of us, no parents, no police, and then he says that nobody can hear us. There's distorted background music as his face gets closer and closer, and then flames start to appear on the screen. Gregory tells the viewer that he needs love, and then the episode ends with the paralyzed face all over the screen.
But no matter what we do, it will just be the two of us, alone in this room. Just me and you. No parents, no police, no one can hear you. Embrace me. I'm love.
Then the staff member came back in and all the kids were crying uncontrollably at the horrifying sight. This next story is seriously messed up. There's no footage or pictures of this, so bear with me as I just use normal pictures from the show. So anyway, this is called the Magic School Bus Original Pilot, which begins with the origin story of the Magic School Bus. It was supposed to be a line of horror stories for kids, with 3 being shown in each episode. This is a similar concept to Goosebumps, and it's much different than what the Magic School Bus actually became. In the episode, the school children were brought onto a school bus which didn't have eyes at the time. The bus turned into a spaceship and they went into space where strange stuff began to happen. Miss Frizzle explains that there's an override lock on the ship, so nobody can leave until it has reached its destination. She says that they are hurtling towards the sun, and then she jokingly says that she could turn off the airlock and suffocate everyone. She laughs it off and then suggests everyone should go into forced sleep. She says that there are 9 stasis beds, but 11 people including herself. Arnold must stay up while everyone goes into stasis sleep, but then he has a weird talk with Miss Frizzle. She says that there were originally 30 students in the class, but 20 of them died. She then says she is going into the upper airlock where there's a separate bed. It'll take 2 years to get back home instead of 6 months like she said earlier, so everyone has to wait longer. Now this is where the story takes an extremely dark turn. Arnold is staying up alone while everyone is asleep, but he doesn't have enough food to survive. We see a montage of time passing and Arnold's looking nervous and hungry. Arnold yells out to Miss Frizzle that she didn't give him enough food, but then she ominously says, "Oh, but Arnold, I did." The camera pans towards all the sleeping bodies of the other Magic School Bus students, and then the voice of Miss Frizzle says, "Eat them." Arnold soon made the horrible realization that Miss Frizzle hadn't put them into stasis, she euthanized them. After he made this realization, he noticed a scalpel appearing near the door. He took it and cut into Phoebe's belly, slicing her open and eating her lungs and intestines. He peels and eats her skin, then moves on to the face as he slices off as the day's friends on Frankie's stomach, which kills her instantly. Blue shouts, "Sweet dreams, Frankie," and begins to laugh. Blue transforms into a demon. The episode ends and the credits roll. Outside of the TV, the VCR explodes. Anyway, that's all for this video. Lost episodes of cartoons can be really messed up and creepy. There are many creepypastas that talk about lost cartoon episodes, ones that never aired and nobody can find real footage of them. Keep in mind that this video is purely for entertainment purposes, and these creepypastas are all fictional. It's still really scary to think about these and how the internet can make such dark stories. This video does have some dark themes, so you should watch it at your own risk. With all that being said, let's get on to some of the creepiest lost cartoon episodes. First, we're going to be talking about The Grieving from the Amazing World of Gumball. This story in particular is extremely disturbing. So it starts off with the narrator Sarah watching Adult Swim really late into the morning, and then an ad comes on for a special episode of The Amazing World of Gumball. The title card reveals that the episode is called The Grieving, and it was 30 minutes instead of the usual 11. The episode began with Gumball standing alone facing a corner of his dimly lit school classroom, crying. It was nighttime outside, and nobody else was around him as he cried for a minute of the episode. After this scene, scene, we see Gumball's father, Richard, looking even more miserable and sobs intensely while sitting on a sofa. Richard's crying gradually got worse, and it wasn't the normal cartoon crying you'd see, but instead more realistic and depressing. Eventually, the scene changed to Gumball's parents in Principal Brown's office. The principal informs them that Anais and Darwin were not present earlier that day. Their bodies had been found, and then it goes into graphic and nauseating detail to describe that. After this scene, we get an insanely creepy flashback of the police searching the wooded area outside of the school. They find finally discover the horrible fate of Anais and realize that her head was found in a small box. Realistic blood covered the box completely, but Anais's head was drawn in the normal cartoonish style. After watching this scene, the narrator calls her brother and asks if he has seen this on TV as well. She finds out that only she can see the grieving, and an old rerun of a Looney Tunes short is playing on her brother's TV. Then we get back to the episode after the narrator desperately tries to turn off her TV and stop playing the episode, but nothing is working and she is forced to watch the rest. Gumball's parents were still talking to the principal, asking if Gumball was alright, seemingly unaware of the previous moments where they found out Gumball died. The police were called again, and Gumball was found in a classroom hanging by a noose. Blood covered the knife behind him, and blood covered his clothing. The episode ended with Gumball's dead body hanging in the corner, fading to black. In the credits, the narrator discovers a familiar name and messages him on Twitter. But before she can message him, she sees a few video clips after the credits of various disturbing things. I don't want to say exactly what they were because honestly it was terrible to read, but you probably don't want to know. Eventually it's found out that this episode was just a sketch of the Wattersons and Friends, something never supposed to be released, and it was made a very long time ago. But then this person who worked on the show says that there was no blood and guts in the episode, no dead bodies, and nothing really creepy. The theory is that some lunatic edited the tape, hijacked the local TV station, and got the episode to air on the narrator's local Cartoon Network station. Someone made this episode in video form, and it's pretty creepy. The next Lost episode is not as well known as The Grieving, but I found this one really scary. It's an episode of Blue's Clues called No Clues. The narrator tells this story as a flashback since it happened in 2001, and he was recommended by his older sister to watch a Blue's Clues VHS. Strangely, it was a red VHS, but the back and other sides were all white. His older sister, Julie, put the VHS in the player and watched the Blue's Clues episode. It began with a weird Nick Jr. logo on the screen for 7 seconds, and then it went to the actual episode. The Blue's Clues intro started, but there was no joyful guitar music and instead depressing piano sounds. Steve says, "Hi, play with me," in a voice that didn't sound like Steve at all. Then there's static and the house door opens, revealing a man that looks nothing like Steve but still wearing the same clothes as him. Then the TV went into static and Steve was back to normal. He said, "Hello little boys and girls, we don't play Blue's Clues today, sorry." The background kid said, "Why not?" And then the screen went into a tiny burst of static, revealing a dead corpse of Blue. She was on her back, her stomach ripped open, and her intestines tied around her. The eyes were popped out of her sockets. Steve began to smile at the camera and then said, "You kids will learn about death." Soon after, there's static and a 666 can be seen if you look closely enough. Then Steve gives Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper juice, but they soon realize that it's actually cyanide and poison. Steve was satisfied at his murder, so he kept going. He went after Shovel and Pail, telling them that they're next. He sang Ring Around the Rosie in a creepy little girl's voice as he grabbed Pail and killed her. More static came on the TV for about a minute, and then we see Steve and Slippery Soap. Slippery is blindfolded, unaware of the terrible fate awaiting him. Steve counted to 3, then sliced him with a knife. He then turned to the screen and said that Satan was his king, that he needed to kill himself to make him happy. A rope sound came out of nowhere and the Nick logo came on. It was in the shape of a knife with the top of it being 666 and the bottom of it saying "To Turno," which meant your turn. There were no credits and the screen became static. The final Lost cartoon episode I'm talking about is SuicideMouse.avi. This is a shorter story than the two others, but it's still extremely creepy. There's an episode of Mickey Mouse walking past buildings continuously as a never-ending loop. There is no catchy tune playing in the background like you would expect, and instead there's either silence or screaming depending on how far in you are. Mickey wasn't dancing or smiling, just walking with a normal facial expression. Keep watching the full episode and it just randomly cuts to a black screen with no explanation. As it went on, everything started to get more distorted and you could hear blood-curdling screams. Mickey's face began to fall apart with his eyes rolling on the bottom of his chin and his smile pointing upward on the left side of his face. The screaming kept going on until 8 minutes in, and then it cuts to the Mickey Mouse face of the credits. According to the creepypasta, there was an employee who watched the final 30 seconds and then came out of the room repeating, "Real suffering is not known," before taking a guard's pistol and shooting himself in the head. You can find video clips of SuicideMouse.avi on YouTube and they're pretty messed up. So yes, these are